Coming up on iOS Today, Rosemary Orchard and I, Mikah Sargent, talk about AirPlay and some of the speakers, devices, companies, and products involved in making your music stream across your home and elsewhere. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 638, recorded Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. AirPlay Augmentations for iPhone and iPad. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by CacheFly. CacheFly is the only CDN built for throughput, delivering rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. Learn how you can get your first month free at cachefly.com. Welcome back to iOS Today. This is the show where we talk all things iOS, tvOS, HomePod OS, watchOS, iPad OS, and all the OSs that Apple has on offer. We are excited to be with you today to talk about all this stuff, the devices, the products, the services, the apps, and the tips and tricks you need to make the most of those devices you have. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary Orchard. Hi, everybody.
Hello, Rosemary. So Apple just recently announced a slew of new products, including some new MacBook Pros and Mac Minis. Along with that came the introduction of a brand new HomePod. Interestingly, Apple had sort of brought a close to the HomePod, or so it seemed. And we, at the time, thought that, that was going to be the end of the big HomePod line, that you'd have the small HomePod minis and perhaps a future product at some point that, could come in many different form factors. But Apple, I think, surprised quite a few people when they released HomePod second generation, which looks a lot like the original HomePod, although it is not as hardware packed as the original, but yet still provides much of the same sound quality from the reviews that I have read, and looks, from the outside at least, a lot like that original HomePod first generation. And of course, with the introduction of a product like this, it is a good time to talk about a streaming technology that Apple uses that I find to be quite enjoyable, despite the fact that I think early iterations of this streaming technology could be a little troublesome at times. So with that, let us talk about AirPlay, and specifically AirPlay 2, as that is the current version that Apple provides.
Yeah. And I think it would be really good, Micah, to start by talking a little bit more about this new HomePod, because I'm sure, folks out there who are listening to or watching the show may have had a HomePod or may currently have a HomePod from the first generation or have a HomePod mini, and want to know, what maybe do you need to watch out for with this? What maybe do you just want to be aware of, and so on. And one of the things that I do want to mention, first of all, if, like me, you have one of the original HomePods that's not in a stereo pair, you can't, unfortunately, just buy one new one and then magically join the two of them together, which is a really great feature that you can actually do with HomePods or HomePod minis, where you can connect two HomePods of the same type. So that's HomePod full-size first gen, HomePod full-size first gen, or two HomePod minis together to give you a really lovely surround sound stereo effect. Unfortunately, you can't cross the streams, to use the Ghostbusters analogy. You can't pair one HomePod mini with one full-size HomePod, or one HomePod first gen, one HomePod second gen. But aside from that, it's a really lovely feature that you can do. And I have to say, I've done this in my bedroom. So I've got one speaker on each side of the bed, and they're really small, so they just sort of fit into the decor, which is nice. And they pair with my Apple TV, which means that I don't have to have my Apple TV in my bedroom super loud if I want to watch something or listen to something. So, I'm not worried about disturbing other people or blasting the audio, but I still get a really lovely audio experience, which is great fun.
Yeah, I have to tell you that was one of the most disappointing things to learn because I, for the longest time, have had one HomePod. In fact, I think it was right after it came out. I purchased the HomePod first generation, and for the longest time, I had it, and it was not in a place financially at the time to where I could just drop, a bunch of money to buy a second one, and other things come up, and you prioritize, and so it never was something that I sprung for to get a second one and do that HomePod stereo pair. But I always said I wanted to, and then right whenever I felt like I was in a place that oh, this is something I could do, Apple goes and discontinues the first generation HomePod.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of reached out to some different folks who may have had, or who had one from whenever they purchased it, and didn't end up finding someone who was able to either had the same color so that I could at least have them match, or had one that they were willing to part with, or with which to part. And so I had just kind of given up. So when this announcement came, I thought, oh, this is fantastic. I'll finally be able to get one. I'll have the HomePod on the left side or the HomePod on the right side and do that stereo pair. It'll be great. And then I read through the fine print on the newsroom piece, and it says that you can't do that. Now, the reason I think that, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge audiophile nerd or anything like that. I want to have an okay sound experience. I don't need to have a superb sound experience. And so I don't like the speakers that are built into the TV. I have at least that much taste, as an audiophile would probably say. But I don't have, a surround sound system or a Dolby Atmos supported 8-channel array or anything like that. I quite literally am just using the one HomePod connected to the Apple TV. And although it is mono and not stereo, it sounds so much better than the TV speakers themselves. But yes, I do wish I had that stereo pair. So the only thing that I could do is either get 2 HomePod minis, which I feel for me would be a loss in audio fidelity and quality, because I'm so used to the HomePod first generation being the speaker system. And mind you, that first generation, as I said, had a lot more hardware in it. And so I would have to get 2 second generation HomePods. And once again, we're getting into the territory where that is quite an investment that I'm just not willing to make right now. But I will say that one of the things that really sticks out for me and is potential kind of encouragement for the future is a feature that Apple introduced. And I'll be honest, I've not used this yet. I can use it with my current setup, but it's funny when you are skeptical of technology working, how it can keep you from wanting to try it because you don't want to be disappointed by it. And the technology I'm specifically talking about here is what's called eARC support with the HomePod, or whatever HomePods you happen to have connected to the Apple TV. So let me do a quick explainer here. ARC, ARC, is Audio Return Channel. And this is a sort of sub-function of HDMI, which you may or may not know. That's that cord that plugs between 2 devices, typically audiovisual devices. So it may be a monitor or a television, and then your, in this case, your Apple TV. And many televisions provide a feature called ARC, Audio Return Channel, and eARC, I believe, is enhanced, is what the E stands for, Audio Return Channel, which is basically just the next generation of Audio Return Channel. And what you need to understand about it is, if you have a television and it's got speakers built in, and it also happens to be a smart TV, then you would be able to, without anything plugged into your TV, turn it on, launch an app, say for Netflix, and start watching content that would then play out of the speakers, right? But what if you wanted, instead of using those speakers that are connected to, or that are built into the TV, you wanted to use a sound bar or some other device that is connected to your TV? Well, you plug in via HDMI into, we're just going to keep it simple, so we'll say a sound bar. And now you can set up in the television, hey, I want you to, instead of making the sound come from within the television, I want you to make the sound come through that sound bar using that HDMI cable to play the sound out through the sound bar. But think about this. What if I have other devices that are connected to the TV? So I've got, say, a PlayStation 5, as is my setup, and I think he still has an Xbox connected to it. Yeah, so we'll go a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox. And each of those are connected via HDMI to the TV. So the typical experience would be that, and I've got, for folks who are watching, I've got these two fingers. These are the two HDMI cables that are running from the Xbox, the PlayStation 5 into the television. And the television has those speakers that are built into it, right? And those can play out what you are, what the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox is sending via audio to the TV right there. But with ARC, Audio Return Channel, it is smart enough to realize that there is a sound bar that is connected to the television. And instead of playing it directly out of the speakers that are in the TV, it can send that audio out into the sound bar and play it out there. So that's what you need to know about ARC. And typically there's a specific port on the TV, which just makes everything a little bit simpler. So it can go, oh, this is that device that you're using to play sound out of. And then what's magical about it too is that it can just function as your regular HDMI. It is not just an audio port. It is also a way to play content from whatever is connected. So I think that that part's kind of cool. That makes ARC a little bit, unique. What Apple has figured out, in theory, because again, I have not tried this. You know what? I'm writing this down. I will try this because I always talk about it, and I think it's such a cool idea. But I was disappointed, or worried about being disappointed. What Apple has done is, because you can use your HomePod or your HomePod Stereo pair or your HomePod Mini Stereo pair to play audio from your Apple TV, they said, why don't we basically enable eARC, Enhanced Audio Return Channel, with the devices, the speakers that you have connected to your Apple TV, meaning that in theory, I could tell the television when the PlayStation 5 is playing or the Xbox is playing, I want you to play that audio through the HomePods that are connected to that Apple TV. Now, what I've heard is that is from people specifically who game, the delay on that, because remember, we're doing this wirelessly. The HomePod is not connected directly to the Apple TV. There's the delay, the lag is enough that it's not a great experience. But if you're just watching shows on a set-top box, for example, then that experience is pretty good. So yeah, I think that feature is really neat.
Yeah, that is. And just for folks who are thinking, oh, that sounds really cool, I'd love to try that, you will need an Apple TV 4K second generation or later running the latest tvOS software to be able to do this. But once you've got one of those set up, then you'll be able to do that. And if you've got a TV, then of course you can always AirPlay things to the TV, but you can do a lot more with that as well, which we'll have to talk about in a moment, Mikah.
Well, let us take a quick break, and then we will come back with all you need to know about AirPlay. I do want to tell you about CacheFly, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. As you well know, the whole world is moving to digital. Well, if they're not moving to digital, they're already digital as it is. And traffic patterns are spiking all over the place. Viewers don't hang around for videos that buffer. I'm not trying to sit there waiting for the video to get loading. Shoppers are abandoning carts on e-commerce sites that are way too slow. And gamers, just talking about those, leave bad reviews when the latency is high. So be ready for those fluctuations with CacheFly. CacheFly is going to help save you from those complaints from the gamers, the abandoned carts, and the viewers who don't stick around to watch your show called iOS Today because the latency is low. We don't have that problem because we use CacheFly. Expectations have risen, and customers expect a faultless experience when engaging with content on any device at any time, anywhere in the world. A leader in CDN technology since 2002, CacheFly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery for 2 decades. CacheFly pioneered the use of TCP Anycast, an innovation that CDNs continue to build upon. Quality of experience It's the single most critical metric when you're serving content simultaneously to a large and distributed audience on a global scale, and your delivery stack can be your secret weapon. With CacheFly, this is what you get. Ultra low latency video streaming that will deliver video to more than 1 million concurrent users. Lightning fast gaming, which will deliver downloads faster with zero lag, glitches, or outages. Mobile content optimization that offers automatic and simple image optimization so your site loads faster on any device. Multi-CDN for redundancy and failover. What that means is it'll intelligently balance your traffic across multiple providers, which gives you the shortest routes and mitigates against performance glitches. And you'll never pay for service overlap again. You get flexible month-to-month billing for as long as you need it, and discounts for fixed terms once you're happy. Design your own contract when you switch to CacheFly. And you may be going, okay, how do you know all this stuff? How can you be sure? Well, we at Twit have been using CacheFly for more than 10 years, and we wouldn't have it any other way. With more than 3,500 clients in more than 80 countries, organizations like Twit consistently choose CacheFly for scalability, for reliability, and for unrivaled performance. CacheFly is the only CDN built for throughput, delivering rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods and 30% faster than other major CDNs. Learn how you can get your first month free at cachefly.com. That's CACHEFLY.com. CacheFly, thank you so much for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All righty, back to the show. We are talking about AirPlay and, of course, the introduction of the new HomePod second generation. And I think something that, we talked a lot about AirPlay so far, obviously, as an audio streaming technology, because we were talking about it in relation to the new HomePod second generation. But AirPlay is also a video streaming service, a video streaming method, and can be pretty rock solid when it comes to that. So tell us a little bit about streaming audio, then we'll get into the video applications that you have with AirPlay.
Yeah, so obviously, when you're looking to AirPlay something in, one of those many audio apps that you've got, then you should actually just be able to do this in a couple of easy ways. First of all, and I can just demo this on my phone, if you are actually listening to some audio, when you enter the control center, that's the swipe down from the top right. And then you actually look in the control center, and if you look really closely, if you're watching the video, in the top right-hand corner of My Now Playing, I've actually got a little speaker icon, and that's because I was actually playing to a speaker earlier, and there was another speaker playing some audio. But when you're actually playing some music, which I can just hit play and it'll play to the system capture, then I can actually just go ahead and I should be able to tap on that speaker icon and change what it's going to play to. So if I wanted to send it to, for example, the kitchen, then I can do that, and I can tap on as many of these devices as I want to combine them together. When you're playing to more than one set of speakers or more than one speaker that you've tapped, then you should be able to see something like the name of the first one, and then underneath that there should be a subtitle of how many speakers, and right to the left there's a little arrow that shows you which speakers are there, and that's where you can also adjust the individual volume. And honestly, this is one of my favorite ways to control AirPlay. But additionally, say for example, your partner or a child or somebody in your home has played some music and they're playing it pretty darn loudly on that HomePod in their room or that AirPlay speaker. When you go into this view, at the bottom, there's this little option that says control other speakers and TVs. And I love this, Mikah. This is one of my favorite little features because when you tap on this, then you get up the other speakers that are around or TVs. And when you tap on one of those, then you can go back into it and control it. Now, that TV is actually off at the moment, so that's not going to work. But if I were to tap on something else, then if I weren't doing the system capture, then this would allow me to just control that if one of those was actually playing. And it's a really great way to maybe sneak in, just adjust the volume downwards slightly so that you don't damage your own eardrums, or to pause something if you've accidentally left a HomePod speaker playing in another room. Of course, from, say, the music app or any of the other audio playing apps, you should probably have a little AirPlay icon at the bottom. And I'm just going to pop open an app that I'm using that I've been playing back my audiobooks with. It's called Prologue, and it allows me to play back some audiobooks that are saved on my Plex server. So when I'm here and I tap into this, then at the bottom, there's this little icon here, which is a triangle with little circles coming out of it. And when you tap on that, that is what allows you to choose your AirPlay destination. And you should see this in any app that you've got audio in, and it should pop up a list if you've got a number of speakers around. It'll be a longer list. If you've got a shorter, if you've only got, say, one HomePod or other AirPlay speaker, then you'll only have a very short list. This is a great way to, jump in and control the audio. And also, if you've done handoff, that the feature where if you've got some audio playing on your phone and you walk up to a HomePod, if you're watching the video, imagine my hand is a HomePod, and you just kind of hover your phone over it, then it'll pass off the playback from your phone to the HomePod, or vice versa. If the HomePod's playing and your phone isn't, it'll hand off the playback. And so you can control that that way as well. And so, being able to hop in and control everything through your system settings is just one of those really great little features that you can do with audio. And of course, it kind of bleeds into video as well, because you can control Apple TVs with that too.
Yeah, in fact, that is one of the most common use cases that I have, and frankly, that my household has, is using Control Center to control the Apple TV when the remote is not to be found or is a distance away that one does not want to go and grab it. Then you just got your phone right there, you swipe down, you do the tapping that you need to do. And I love the integration that exists enough between the devices where you can see, in some cases, show artwork, and you can see where you are in the show, turn on, turn off captions, that kind of thing. So yeah, both for streaming via audio or controlling devices, all of that being available right there is just so doggone handy. And I think it's kind of awesome how with the video version, which we're getting to momentarily, there are multiple options for the way that AirPlay can work, including mirroring a device or extending a device, or even being able to have a developer kind of create a special AirPlay screen that uses the content from your main screen as well. So there are lots of customization options that exist there that I think really make AirPlay solid. And I have to say too, at Twit, we regularly use AirPlay as a technology when we're trying to show stuff on our screens. So if I have, it could be, well, I'll give you an example. On the show that I do with Leo Laporte on Sundays, Ask the Tech Guys, the way that I am showing my MacBook that I have with me whenever I need to show something on the screen, I'm just connected not via HDMI. I am AirPlaying the screen to one of two Apple TVs we have that are connected. And that is the way that we show what's on my screen, and me moving around and, zooming in on a website or scrolling or what have you. Or whenever I have a demo I want to show on an iPhone or an iPad, same thing. We AirPlay to one of those Apple TVs. It pops up. There's no plugging and unplugging that needs to happen. And it's a really solid experience. It's pretty great.
Yes, it really is. And AirPlay with video is one of those things where it's a little bit tricky, because it really depends on what you're trying to AirPlay as to whether you can actually AirPlay the video content from an app, or if you want to do screen mirroring. So to give a good example, if you are trying to AirPlay or connect via HDMI, this one is something that pops up every now and again where you can't do this. Something like Netflix. If you connect a HDMI adapter to your iPad or your iPhone, and then you try and play Netflix through that, then you'll just get a black screen on both sides, and you won't actually see the content that you're trying to share. And basically, this is due to the terms and conditions that you agree to when you pay for Netflix, that you're not going to use this for broadcasting purposes. And the way that they choose to do that is usually via blocking you from doing HDMI. But AirPlay is an option that's usually available in apps. So I'm just going to pull up the YouTube app as that is not installed on my iPhone because I uninstalled this earlier for testing vinegar and baking soda, which are some great apps that I highly recommend. But if you open most apps, then when you go to play a video, then you'll see a little icon, which is kind of a square with some rounded circles coming out of it, or you'll see a regular AirPlay icon. And if you tap on this, then you should have the option to play through AirPlay and then or through something else. Now, if you see the square with something else, and this is something I can actually show you with the Plex app because this also has this icon. They're actually using a little Chromecast icon. And this seems perhaps a little weird, but I promise I can explain why. So basically what happens here, if you're watching the video stream and you're looking at my phone and there's an icon in the top right-hand corner, which is actually kind of like a little sort of signal icon with a square coming out of it. Sometimes the icon's on the top right-hand side of the square for the signal. But when I tap on this, then you'll see that I have some options. I can either connect to AirPlay and Bluetooth devices, or I can connect straight to something that supports, casting. So that's specifically Google's Chromecast protocol. But then once I tap on that AirPlay option, then I get the usual things that are available to me, including where I can play the audio or the video to something else. Now, if you're looking really closely, you'll see that my bedroom Apple TV has got a little Apple TV icon in the HomePods because I use the HomePods as the default output for my bedroom Apple TV. So these are just always connected together. So if I'm playing something to the HomePods in the bedroom, then it comes on and that's it. But this is great if you want to just share the content from an app. And there's all sorts of great apps that support things like this, like Notability, which has customized support. Sometimes you just want to share your whole screen. So in the control center, next to the rotation lock icon above your focus mode icon, there is an icon for two squares overlaid on one another. And when you tap on this, then you'll get the options for screen mirroring. Now, I'm not going to tap on any of these if you're watching the video because I don't want to break sharing my video with you. But screen mirroring essentially takes exactly what's on your phone and plays it over AirPlay to whatever device you're playing it to. Now, bearing in mind, it's not just Apple TVs that support video AirPlay. So you can see my Mac Studios here because, I'm actually plugged in and I can do that. But you can also find this built into a number of projectors and other similar devices as well. So you can screen mirror to that. And this will share your whole screen, which if you're watching the video, screen mirroring technology is what we're using here. So yeah, as Mikah said, it's what you use in the studio and it works really well. I have to say it's really nice. And when I'm trying to explain something to my parents and they're not quite getting it, I find that often, using this technology to share my whole device is a really great way to just show them exactly what I'm tapping instead of just letting them kind of squint at a small screen with my fingers in the way.
Yes. In fact, just the other day, my mom had asked me for help with something. I don't recall what it was, but I sent her a quick little screen captured video showing her how to, when using FaceTime, turn on the screen sharing feature so that I could see what her screen looked like and then walk her through the process. And that was really handy. It was quite nice to be able to do that and find what we needed to find. So I just think that AirPlay has gotten rock solid over time. There were a couple of apps that I wanted to mention. There is a Dungeons and Dragons, or I should say, a standard tabletop role-playing game app, but it's very good to use with Dungeons and Dragons. And I am trying to remember now the name of that app. But regardless of what it's called, and I'll try to kind of talk and look it up. It is an app that is for dungeon masters, the people who are in charge of kind of like making the game and running the game. It lets you create your whole set of characters, and it gives you the ability to show maps and all this other stuff. But the reason that it's front of mind for me is because it has a feature where you can have one experience taking place on the device itself, like an iPad or a Mac. There's a Mac version of this app. And then on the AirPlay screen, the experience is totally different. It is just the map that you decide to AirPlay to the screen. And so I think a lot of times when people are using these tools, or when they're using AirPlay, they think of it as a mirroring experience. And that makes it a limitation, I think, in our heads, because it is not just simply mirroring from our devices on mobile. It can be an entirely other screen. The app, by the way, is called Encounter Plus, made by Qubit. And it is, I've used it in the past as, again, a tool that lets me show a map on the screen if I want to. And then the other one that I wanted to mention, again, forgetting the name of it, but it is it was specifically created during the pandemic because people were kind of not getting together necessarily, but calling each other up, and they were playing board games and other games that involve like scorekeeping. And this app would let you create a scorekeeping board game, or rather a scorekeeping board, and plug all that information in. And what you saw on your screen was one thing, but it was a completely custom designed screen that would actually be AirPlayed on the television or the monitor or whatever that you had connected to it. So pretty cool how developers are able to create these custom experiences that let you make make the way that it looks on your phone and the way that it looks on a screen different if you need to. And it was an app made by the folks at Lickability. And I'm trying to find it. Oh, it's called Scorecard. I've just found it. So let me also link to Scorecard in the App Store if you would like to pick it up as well. Yeah. Anything else I want to mention about AirPlay before we move on to our next segment?
Yeah, I feel like it's worth mentioning AirPlay is available outside of the HomePod and the Apple TV. So there are a number of TVs that you can buy that have got AirPlay built in. You may find that actually the TV that you've got at home already has AirPlay built in. I know my Samsung does, which is, a lovely feature. And of course, there are a number of speakers out there that support AirPlay without necessarily having a HomePod price tag, or sometimes having a different form factor. So the Sonos line is pretty well known now for having support for AirPlay 2, and that I find personally works really well. I have a little Sonos Roam, which I love. That works really well. But if you love the idea of the Sonos speakers, but the Sonos price tag makes you, that's kind of pricey because, they are also not cheap, then don't forget you can take a look at the IKEA Symfonisk range.
Mm-hmm.
And the IKEA Symfonisk range are Sonos speakers in IKEA housings. So I actually have a picture hanging on the wall in my hallway. And it's just sort of kind of paint spots and so on. I just had to glance over to see which, art I've got in there at the moment, because you can change the art. But that's actually a Sonos speaker. And it's got full support for AirPlay 2, and it's also in the Sonos ecosystem as well. And I have to say, I really love the Symfonisk things. They seem great to me, and they are a really nice price point if you are looking for good speakers. You don't want to go HomePod, but you do want to get something decent that supports AirPlay. So yes, there are some other ones as well. I know, Mikah, you were saying that there's a Belkin one that you've used before.
I've actually got it. It's connected behind me right now. If you've already got speakers in your home and you want to AirPlayify them, Belkin makes a device called the SoundForm Connect. And it's just a tiny little device that is independently powered. So you plug it in, and then it has an analog audio out and a digital optical audio out on the front of it. You plug in whatever it is that you're trying to connect to it, and it just works as an AirPlay receiver. So you can play out audio. And because it's AirPlay 2, that means that you can stream to multiple devices, including it. So when I really want to rock out to an album, you can kind of see behind me, I've got, it's a little covered, but there's a bookshelf speaker here. And then there's a bookshelf speaker there as well, behind me on my desk. And then in front of me, I've got the studio display, which has its whole set of speakers built into it, and a HomePod Mini. And so I can stream to all three of those at once and really jam out if I want to. Well, I have to be careful because, the neighbors might get a little upset. But that is thanks to the Belkin SoundForm Connect that lets me, again, just stream whatever I want to those speakers. So, yeah, you can take the technology you already have and improve upon it with AirPlay. And Rosemary, you make a good point that is just one of several options that is available to you as or from Belkin. They also have the SoundForm Elite, and I think there's one more that does AirPlay, but I can't recall now.
Yeah, there's quite a few different products out there if you go and look for them. I know Libratone, their Libratone Zip is one product. I bought one and gave it to my parents, which they really love. They have that. There's a number of different speakers that you can get. So it's worth, if you're considering getting a HomePod speaker, checking out the alternatives to see if there's something that works better for you. Especially considering the fact that for those of us in Europe, geographically at any rate, the price of the HomePod Mini's just gone up a little bit, which is kind of sad, somewhat inevitable, because that's how these things work. But if you are looking for alternatives, then there are definitely ones out there, and you will still get full integration in HomeKit with those AirPlay speakers as well. So you don't need to worry about that either.
Beautiful. All right. That brings us to the end of the first segment of the show, talking all about AirPlay and different ways you can use AirPlay technology to improve upon your streaming media experiences. So whether it's audio or video, you can do all of that. I think it gets pretty exciting whenever you consider the possibilities if you've got even just a few devices. And of course, I can't remember if we mentioned this earlier. You may have, Rosemary, but originally, Apple did not give you the ability to use Macs that you had in your home as AirPlay destinations. Put another way, being able to AirPlay to those devices. But now I can open up my MacBook Air, or I can have my Mac Studio on, and any of those I can AirPlay to as well. So I think that opens up the possibilities even more.
Yes, it is. And especially if you've already got really nice speakers on your desk that you've connected to your computer, then you are able to AirPlay to that, so that you can actually get the benefit of that without having to buy something like the Belkin SoundForm, and then maybe having to try and switch the audio to that so that you can play it to it. You can play to those same speakers from your PC or your Mac rather, as well as from the Belkin. So yeah, it's a really nice option. There's a whole useful document on the Apple website that we can provide a link to in the show notes that tells folks how this works, with using Bluetooth Low Energy to find all of those AirPlay speakers, and how the security works as well, which I understand, some people may be a little concerned about, though I will actually show some folks a few little bits about that in Shortcuts Corner, because we're going to be looking at AirPlay and HomeKit speaker stuff today.
Beautiful. All right. Up next, it is time to talk about the news. Yes, the news is next. First and foremost, you should be hopping over, dancing over, jazzing over to your settings screen so you can get the latest update to iOS. You can launch the settings app, you tap on general, you tap software update, and you wait for that to merrily, it rolls along until it says, hey, there's an update available. and then you install that update. There are several bug fixes in this next version of iOS. This is 16.3. So that, I think, is one of the most important things to know about the next version of iOS that's now available. As you get those updates installed, you are protecting yourself from different security concerns that are, worth protecting yourself from. So, is there anything else with iOS 16.3 that folks should be hopping on? I know I just updated my iPad this morning to the latest version of iPad OS.
Yeah. So if folks are going, great. So I'm going to go and update my HomePods to HomePod OS 16.3. And then you go and look and it's not out yet. Don't worry, it's known, it's on its way, it's progressing, but it's not out yet for folks who aren't on the betas. So don't worry, have a little bit of patience, and that will be out pretty soon. And don't forget, folks, update your Apple TVs as well, so that you can make sure that you have the goodies all across all of your devices. And especially if you previously hopped on the 16.2 HomeKit update, and on top of that, especially if you then had some resulting interestingness in HomeKit as a result of trying that 16.2 HomeKit update that Apple then yoinked back, please definitely go and update everything to 16.3 as soon as possible, and that should help iron out a lot of those bugs for you.
Yes, it has been my experience that installing the release candidates, meaning the versions that would eventually come out for everyone else, fixed some of the issues that I had when I unreasonably chose to update to the latest version of the HomeKit framework. So I was happy that some of those problems were ironed out and that now things seem to connect pretty well, especially since Matter continues to be a rollout that's happening time and time again. And I know I've had a few issues with Matter in particular, but now I firmly expected that I would be logging or opening up my home app the day after I added some Matter devices to my home and seeing the little notification that says, hey, we can't connect to this device. I was prepared for it. I hopped on and it didn't show up. It didn't appear, which meant that yes, by goodness, by golly, they seem to have addressed many of the issues that I was having, and that made me very happy. So pumped about that. The next news is very, very exciting. If you are a Twitter user who, due to the basically destruction of support for third-party apps on Twitter, have been looking for what comes next. Well, I have to tell you, Ivory from Tapbots, the folks who make Tweetbot, is now officially available. I will tell you, I tried to get on the beta a number of times and was never fast enough to get on the beta / who knows if me being on beta OS software made test flight not work properly. But in any case, I was very jealous because I was not able to use it. But now it's truly available. I downloaded it. I logged in and I finally do feel like I could use Mastodon regularly because it feels now familiar. It feels comfortable and everything doesn't just, I don't know. There was something about the Mastodon client I was using before that just, I thought I was regularly missing things and I didn't really want to check in and see what was going on because I didn't know for sure kind of where these things were coming from, if that makes sense. So I'm really happy that Ivory is out. Now, Rosemary, I imagine you got in on the beta, didn't you? What are your thoughts on Ivory?
Yeah, I did manage to get in on the beta and I've been in on it for a while. The folks at Tapbots have been working really hard on this, and they were working hard on this before Twitter yoinked their API keys and broke everything for Twitter Tweetbot, Twitterific. Spring is another one that got killed recently as well. In fact, a lot of Twitter apps that aren't the official Twitter app have basically just being killed over the last week and a half or so. And I have to say, it's a really enjoyable experience. So you can actually connect multiple accounts here. So I do have the little iOS Today account there. And under the settings, you can naturally go in and do things like change the app icon to one that suits your mood. So there are some lovely Pride icons, which I can definitely recommend. I'm currently using one called Cosmic, which has got a lovely sort of blue and pink elephant. But it feels like an app that I feel very at home with, because Tapbots, the folks behind Tweetbot did basis very heavily on the Tweetbot app, so that, there are buttons in the same place. These little arrows in the menu bar at the bottom next to some of the icons, if I tap and hold on those, then I can actually change what these things do, so that I get, the different parts of Mastodon that I'm actually interested in right under my fingers. Which, I love. So we will have to do a little bit more of an in-depth dive on Mastodon apps for iPhone and iPad at some point in the future, Mikah. But as it is, if you're looking for one, Ivory is free to download and try out. And then it's $14.99 a year to unlock all of the features if you would like to do that once you've given it a play. But I definitely recommend downloading it, giving it a play. And see if you like it. I'm personally really enjoying it. It works really well. It is iPhone and iPad only. The folks at Tapbots say that there is a Mac client in the works, but obviously due to, the way that everything's happened, they've kind of had to drop everything and focus very hard on getting this out the door as soon as possible.
Got to prioritize to the best of your ability. And I'm glad that this is out, because I thought I was going to be waiting for quite a while to be able to try it out. And as I said, I really do think that this is going to make all the difference. I've already put it into my dock on my phone. Nice. So yeah, that's when
Oh gosh, yeah. I should say the folks at Tapbots do explicitly state that this is in early access mode. It is not got every single feature in there that they wanted to have out for release, but there is a current roadmap on their website, which are not necessarily things you're going to see like immediately next, but they are the things that they are prioritizing working on, as well, of course, as any bugs and so on that people come across. But I have to say, in my time using Ivory, I have very fortunately thus far, and I'm grabbing my desk, which is made of wood here, found very few bugs. So the folks at Tapbots have been working super hard on that, and I'm glad it shows.
Beautiful. And then last but not least, surprise, surprise, we thought that Apple choosing to release the next versions of the MacBook Pro and the Mac Mini in January instead of doing it at the end of this previous year was because Apple was kind of preparing itself for supply constraints and making sure that it had enough supply. So if you wanted to go and buy one, you'd be able to. And it seems like even with waiting, there could still be a bit of a shortage. According to iMore, Apple's HomePod 2 is already seeing delays on the new device. So either a lot of people are buying them, or many people are buying them, and Apple did not make enough of them to feed the supply.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to go with it's 6 of one and half a dozen of another. If I were to go in and click order now on the HomePod over here in the UK, Mikah, it's suggesting that I get it between the 1st and the 8th of March. As it is, I'm expecting my HomePod to arrive somewhere between the 3rd and the 7th of February. So we'll have to see when it arrives, and hopefully we'll be able to give it a play and then talk about it here on iOS Today.
Beautiful. I am looking forward to that for sure. With that, we've reached the end of the news segment, which means it's time to move on to Shortcuts Corner. This is Shortcuts Corner, the part of the show where you write in with your Shortcuts Corner requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the Shortcuts expert, provides a response. This week, we've got some fun demos involving AirPlay and the HomePod, so that you can either prep yourself for a new HomePod coming soon, or make sure that the HomePod or HomePods you already have are ready to roll. Rosemary, take it away.
All right. So I know that some folks love the idea of AirPlay and, being able to AirPlay to their Apple TV and so on, but they don't want just anybody AirPlaying to it. And so I thought to start with, let's just have a little quick review. So in the Home app, if you tap on the three dots in the top right-hand corner and then go to the Home Settings section, then you'll be able to see, basically the settings for your home, your smart home in HomeKit. And first of all, when you scroll down, there's a section called Speakers and TVs. And this is a really useful little bit to look at because it's where you allow speaker and TV access. Okay, so you can choose to allow speaker and TV access to everyone, which means anybody within range. And because this is using Bluetooth, that Bluetooth range is, not exactly the shortest, depending on the construction of your building. It may be pretty far that Bluetooth will allow you can go, or it may be not that far. But, if you just allow it for everybody, then it's allowed for anybody who's on your Wi-Fi network or within range of the device. Next is anyone on the same network. So if you've let somebody onto your Wi-Fi network, then they would also be able to AirPlay to an Apple TV or a HomePod or any AirPlay speaker on that network. And then there's the final option, which is only people sharing this home. So you'd have to add them to your HomeKit Home for them to be able to AirPlay to any of your devices. And then there's a final separate option here, which is require password. And when you turn this password on, don't worry, folks, I change this one on a regular basis. Then you can actually specify a password here. It does need to be a numeric code, just because of the way that AirPlay works with some of the sort of like the ones built into Samsung and so on. But once you turn this on, people would have to enter this particular password or passcode for it to actually work. So you can actually go ahead and type in something alphanumeric there. I would recommend keeping this something simple that you can remember very easily, and you can turn this option on and off as you so choose. So that is definitely something worth checking out and making sure that you are happy with that setting. And underneath this section in the home settings, this is where the software update is. So this is specifically software updates for HomePods. Other AirPlay speakers won't appear in here. But when you pop in, it'll check to see whether or not your accessories are up to date with the latest version that's available as you know it. And then you can tap and pop in and see what's been updated recently. Apparently my HomePod was updated recently. Okay, well, 16.2, that's not quite what I was hoping. And if you've enrolled into any of the HomePod beta updates, then you'll be able to see at the moment it's only HomePod minis in those betas, but fingers crossed the new HomePod will be in there soon as well. So that is just something worth checking out if you are looking for those settings. So the first demo I want to show folks is actually just a little thing that I use on a daily basis. And if you are watching the video, you can see that I do this at 5 a.m. every day. So at 5 a.m. every day, my HomePod speakers will just reset their volume. So I've just created a HomeKit automation. I'm just going to show folks how you can do that from scratch. So if you tap on the plus in the top right-hand corner in the Home app, and then you add an automation, then you can choose at a specific time. Now, I've chosen 5 a.m. because pretty much whenever I get up is probably going to be after 5 a.m. So, I just went with that one. But choose whatever time makes the most sense for you to potentially do this sort of reset. And I've said, every single day, it doesn't matter who's home or not home or whatever. And then I scrolled down underneath all of my scenes and looked for my HomePods. Now I'm just going to select the one HomePod for the time being because I don't want to scroll through and pick everything. But once you have a HomePod or an Apple TV in your accessories section, then you get a new section in your HomeKit automations called Media. And when you look at this, there's a segment called Audio, and it defaults to play audio. But when you tap on that, you can choose what you would do instead. So instead of playing audio, you may pause audio, resume audio, or do what I do, which is adjust volume only. And then you can change the set custom volume to be something of your choice. So that, if you were to reach out in the middle of the night and accidentally tap on the top of your HomePod, you're not going to accidentally blast, death metal at yourself at full volume at 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is. That probably would not get a, home approval factor from those resident in your home or those resident adjacent to your home. So yeah, I would recommend having a think about doing something like this, because it just means that if you do crank up the volume throughout the day, but then you'd like to have, quieter music come on in the morning without having to remember to set that volume, then this is a really great way to do this. So speaking of unexpected death metal, if you have a cat or a pet at home, you may have occasionally come home, if you've got a HomePod as well, and discovered music is playing and gone, wonder how that happened. Something must have gone wrong. Well, if you're my friend Gray, then you will probably know that this was actually your cat. This was not, ghosts running around your house, turning on HomePods. It's your cat who's learned how to sit and tap the top of the HomePod because it then plays music. Now, of course, you can turn off the touch controls for an individual HomePod, but those can still be pretty useful when you've got music playing or something, or if you'd like to be able to tap and hold the top of your HomePod so that you can then speak to Siri without having to say the incantation phrase. So if you have a cat and you are concerned that your cat may start playing music and turning it up while you're not at home, then let's cat-proof your HomePods and other audio systems. So what I would do for this is instead use when an accessory is controlled. And what you can do is then just, you should be able to select a HomePod of whenever a HomePod starts playing. But that is, of course, now not showing up for me, even though it did earlier. But you can use when people leave and have the volume on those HomePods just turned all the way down to the bottom so that, at the very least, when Kitty goes tap on the top of the HomePod, then it won't start playing music. Also, if your cat likes to use the HomePod as an alarm clock in the middle of the night, then this may be a really good one to do right before you go to bed as well, just to avoid those midnight zoomies turning into midnight loonies of, you not being so happy with your pets. There was one person recently who shared that they discovered that they have mice in their kitchen because the mice were sitting on the top of the HomePod and turning on the music that was linked to all of the HomePods in their house. Fortunately, it was a pet mouse that had escaped, so it all turned out well in the end, and the pet was retrieved. But there we go. And the last one I want to share is one that I use this every day, and I like to have music as my alarm clock in the morning, but I do not necessarily actually want to, have to change the alarm on my HomePod. Because if you use a HomeKit Automation to play music, it goes off at a specific time or when a sensor gets triggered or something, and it's difficult to get your alarm into HomeKit. But you don't need to get your alarm into HomeKit with shortcuts, because what you can do is you can create a shortcut for when your wake up alarm goes off. And I have this just run a wake up alarm shortcut. So I'll show folks how you can create this automation. So if you tap on the plus in the shortcuts app and you create a personal automation, then into the sleep section, you can say when waking up. Or you can either do that, or you can choose under the alarm section, which I've just scrolled past, haven't I? Yes, when my alarm goes off, and you can specify that it's your wake up alarm. And you can say when it goes off, when it's snoozed, or when it's stopped. And I actually used when my wake up alarm actually goes off in the morning. So then I'm running a shortcut, which is my wake up alarm. So I'll just open that. And this is great because it means that I can share this with you folks. And so I'm doing a little trick here where I'm getting the name of my Wi-Fi network. And if my Wi-Fi network is my home network, which is called the Promised LAN, yes, pun very much intended, then I update Home Assistant with a couple of little tips and tricks. And then I set my alarm clock scene and stop the shortcut. If I'm at my parents' house, I do something different. And then I add 1 minute to my alarm. And then I create a new alarm called Wake Up Alarm. And the reason for this is because I wear my Apple Watch to sleep. I get a vibrating alarm on my wrist, and I do not get an audible alarm on my phone. So with this, with my set alarm clock home scene, then I get music playing. And then a minute later, an alarm goes off on my phone to make sure that I'm definitely awake. So that is just one of the ways that you can do that. And I'll just show folks in the Home app, if I tap on the plus and I create a scene, you can call this whatever you like. I'll just pick good morning for the time being. Then you can select a couple of accessories. I need to actually add or remove some accessories because it's defaulting to some. So I'll go back and create a custom scene instead and just add accessories. So there we go. If I pick my living room HomePod for this, then that play audio option, you would choose audio. You could choose ambient sounds, or you can choose something for your library. Tell you what, I'll pick one of the ambient sound options because that's pretty nice. And this is also how you can do a go to sleep thing with AirPlay. And so you can play this. You can even choose to set a custom volume for it, which is one of the things that I've done as well, so that custom volume is applied to those HomePods. And then you just call this whatever you like, and you can use this scene with your voice or with anything. And it's a great way to AirPlay without actually having to get a device out of your pocket or, specifically do something on, one of your devices physically. You can just talk to your HomePod to apply a scene, and voila, then you get music out of your AirPlay speakers. So make the most of that and enjoy that.
Love it. Those are all fantastic tips, especially that last one. I saw like 3 people go, "Oh, I need to change. I need to do that. I need to set that up. That'll be great." Let us move along to feedback and questions. Ken writes in, "Greetings from snowy Vermont." Oh, nice. Some time ago, one of you talked about an app for keeping records of subscriptions. Any idea of the name? Watch the video of iOS Today each week. Grand job. Thanks for all your effort, Ken. And yes, I have a feeling I know which one this one is. And goodness gracious, I really dig it.
Yes, I believe the app that Ken is asking about is actually Bobby, which we talked about on the first episode of this year. So Bobby is the squirrel who, instead of collecting nuts, collects all of your subscriptions in his little app, providing you give him the information to do that, of course. So this is a great app that you can download for free, and then there's an in-app subscription to add, all of the subscriptions to Bobby, which is a lovely option. Another one that I know I have mentioned on the show before is Chronicle. Which is an app that does a similar thing. It's got a different appearance that may or may not appeal to you more, but those are the 2 apps that I can think of that I've talked about, Mikah. And I know that you were really keen on Bobby when I mentioned it. So I
think it's Bobby.
Yeah. I love Bobby, but I've used Chronicle in the past, so I thought it was worth mentioning.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm glad you mentioned both of the 2. I have both of them as well. And Bobby, it's delightful and works very well. So definitely, again, check them both out. One of them may work better for you depending on your aesthetic desires, but try out Bobby first. Todd writes in, "I would love a show or a portion of a show on a weather station. I don't know quite how that would be tied to iOS. Thanks for all your shows, though. You guys are great." I'll replace that. "You folks are great. Sincerely, Todd." Hey, thanks, Todd. A weather station that works with iOS, that sounds like something Rosemary Orchard would do.
Yeah, it sounds like something I might have done twice, Mikah, because that's how much I loved it. So I actually have 2 recommendations for you, Todd, which I'll just briefly pop open the apps for if I can get them open. So over here in the UK, I have my Netatmo weather app. So the Netatmo weather system, so there's the Netatmo indoor air quality sensors, which you can get, which are kind of like the pink ones. And then there's the weather station, which is silver. This actually has HomeKit integration. So you can get 1 or more indoor sensors. And I'm just going to quickly grab one of the remote ones from behind my desk, which I should have grabbed earlier. That was a very inelegant reach. So this is one of the battery-powered indoor sensors that you can get to add onto it. And so this is now a temperature and humidity sensor in HomeKit. So there we go. That's your iOS link, Todd. Got it in there for you. And so these are great. It's just got some batteries here to power it. Oh, I can't pop that off at the moment. It's got a little coin slot in the bottom. And not only that, it's got an outdoor station, which, as you can see, it's currently 0.0 degrees outside. That's in a very protected position. I'm happy/sad to say, and it feels like -2. But you can also get things like a rain gauge for this and also a wind anemometer, which is lovely. However, the downside of that, Netatmo is mostly only available over here in the UK and the EU. They are a French company. They're lovely and very, I really enjoy mine, and they're, nice, pretty products. But unfortunately, mostly over here. So if you want more data and you're thinking just kind of outdoor weather stations, I've been logged out. So let me just quickly log back in there, which I should be able to do very easily. So if you're looking for something that's got more nerdy data and you want to be able to get that data onto your iPhone, then it's worth taking a look at the EcoWit weather stations. So EcoWit have got a number of different ones available. Then once you've sorted that out, then you'll be able to sign in. Unfortunately, the sign into the app isn't working for me right now. This is actually at my parents' place in France, but they've got some really great weather stations. It's worth keeping an eye out for sales on Amazon, but they even do things like soil moisture levels, and they've got a leaf wetness sensor, Mikah, which you can like attach to like a tree and put it under some leaves, and so that it will like be able to tell how wet the leaves are, including itself. So
interesting.
That'd be useful for like planning when you're cutting a hedge or something, because you don't want to do it when it's super wet. So yeah,
I wonder how they do that. How do they test the leaf wetness?
Yeah, so they have like a fake leaf that you kind of attach to
that's so
one of the
neat.
trees. Yeah, it's really cool. Definitely worth checking out. It's very nerdy stuff, but it's got an iPhone app, so it's iOS Today worthy.
Beautiful. Folks, I want to remind everybody out there to please take the Twit survey at twit.tv/survey23. Super easy URL, twit.tv/survey23. When you go there, you will be able to take our audience survey. This is an annual survey. You may have taken it in the past. We ask that you take it every year if you have the time. It'll only take you a couple of minutes. But in doing so, it helps us to better understand our audience. It helps us to understand what you like, what you don't like. And it also helps us to work with our sponsors so they know who we're talking to. We know who we're talking to. And you know that we know who you are. We don't like to do a bunch of tracking and all that kind of stuff. And so because of that, we do need to take an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, get to know you a little bit more. And this is what the survey is for. Twit.tv/survey23. The last day to take the survey is January 31st. That is coming up fast. In fact, 1 week from today. So I would love it if you could hop on there, twit.tv/survey23, take that survey and let us know. And then iOS Today can continue to lead the charge on being the most gender diverse show that is on the network in terms of our listeners. I'm so excited about that every time. So would love to know that that is continuing. And if not, then that gives me some heads up so that Rosemary and I can make sure that we continue to make the show inviting to all folks who tune in.
Yes. I have to say, Mikah, one of my favorite things about this show is how many folks write and say that they love watching the show and, how welcome they feel. And that's something that, that to me is really important. So I'm really glad that folks feel that way. Yes,
it's a very heartwarming moment. And of course, it's what we want to do. It's what we want to do. So glad to hear that is working out. Again, twit.tv/survey23. And I will be careful not to hit my fingers against the microphone for the rest of this episode, at least. Can't promise for the future. With that, it is time for our app gaps. This is the part of the show where we wear silly caps, or no, it doesn't have to be silly. We wear caps atop our heads. We wear some sort of head covering to honor our app and gadget picks of the week. These are the apps and gadgets we love that we want to share with all of you because we think you'll enjoy them too. So let us get into it with Rosemary Orchard's app and app cap. Rosemary, tell us about the cap atop your head.
Well, the cap atop my head is definitely more of a hat. It is my overly dramatic, extra wide brim black hat, which I love wearing because it's actually surprisingly warm and cozy. And it's got a little band around it, and then there's a nice little bow at the back, which is rather cute and adorable. So as Joe in the chat room has just said, we need a 3D version of this so you can really, really get the size of the hat. It is huge. But I love it because it's extra drama. And of course, sometimes you just need to add a little bit more drama into your life, don't you?
Indeed.
Maybe with an appropriate sound effect. Well,
Ooh.
If you want an appropriate sound effect, then instead of opening the music app on my iPhone, maybe on my Apple Watch, maybe I should open Thwip. And Thwip is spelled THWIP. It's a free app. It's only available on Apple Watch, but it is a great app that if you want sound effects. So, maybe somebody just said something hilarious and you can just take advantage of that and is this not going to do it because I am AirPlaying? Let's see. Maybe I just need to adjust the volume back up. There we go. Okay. I apologize in advance, folks, if this is super loud, but hopefully if it is, we can fix that in post. Oh, no, it's gone back to being really quiet. Okay, well, I promise you, there are a lot of great sound effects in here so that you can actually really enjoy them. And, that's, fabulous. So that, I think I know what it is, Mikah. I think it's because I am AirPlaying this and because I have mute on my Apple Watch. So for folks who don't remember, you can actually mute your Apple Watch when you swipe up from the bottom into Control Center. There's a little mute icon. There's a bell, which you can adjust. So let's see if this will do it now. No, it's still very, very quiet. I will just turn off AirPlaying the screen to my phone and see if that fixes it. That looks like it's done it now. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just taken me a little while to figure this out. And so I have the appropriate sound effects right here on my wrist. Now, I should note there's a great feature built into this, which is the spider web. Yes, folks, if you've wanted to be Spider-Man before, or Spider-Girl, or Spider-Woman, or Spider-Person, then you can indeed take the Apple Watch off your wrist, place it on the palm of your hand, and then you can pretend to be Spider-Person. So that you have those spider sound effects wherever you might need to go. Maybe you just need a bell sound, or maybe you need, that finishing touch on whatever it is you're saying. You can put it on your wrist. So why wouldn't you do that? It's free to download. It's fun. Go ahead, download it if you've got an Apple Watch and enjoy. I am thinking that I may actually put this on my action button when I'm not in a focus mode, Mikah, because why not, right? It's pretty cool. It's got a lot of features and fun sound effects built in.
Can you tell users or listeners how they go about getting this? Because I went into the App Store on my iPhone and I went into my purchase section and it showed that I had purchased it, but it didn't give me a way to download it. So how does one get this app on their iPhone? I mean, on their Apple Watch.
So if you are on your iPhone and you go into the App Store and you search for THWIP, then you'll see that there are two entries in the results. So just to remind folks, so THWIP. When you see THWIP, the first one should have a magnifying glass next to it. The second one, however, should have a little watch icon and say THWIP in Watch Apps. And when you tap on that, then you can actually see it, which will give you some more information about it. And you can see this whether or not you've got an Apple Watch. But the best way to get this is on your Apple Watch. And let me just see if I can, that's my Apple Wallet, but that's okay because it hides all the information. There we go. So once you have your Apple Watch up and once it's connected and decided that it's happy to AirPlay to the screen, then you can actually open the App Store. And so I have my apps here as a list on my Apple Watch. If you prefer to have them as the, hexagon honeycomb effect, then you may find that the App Store is a little trickier to find, but it's a blue icon with a white A on it. And to switch between those views, you can tap and hold, by the way. But once you're there in the App Store, you'll need to search for THWIP. Now, the problem I had when I did this earlier is when you type THWIP, it will suggest autocorrecting to something. It actually autocorrected to there for me earlier, but if you just tap on that first autocorrect option, if you're using a device with a keyboard, otherwise you probably want to spell this out with the dictation, then you can tap search, and then on your Apple Watch, you will be able to go ahead and download that. And it's free, so you can set that up. If you need to type in a passcode, then you can use the keyboard on your iPhone to do so. But yeah, that's how you can download it. And that's the probably easiest way to do that as well. So there we go.
Sorry.
It's very quiet, Mikah, but good fun. Good work.
Oh, I know why it's being quiet, this silly thing. Let's try that one more time. And was it louder?
Yes.
I don't know.
There were crickets. Audible crickets.
That is a lot of fun, and I can't wait to very sort of in a rogue state start making these sounds when my partner is here, and then I can sort of just make little sounds and then go, well, did you hear that? No, that's cruel. That's cruel, but it will be fun to have that and play around with it. So thank you for sharing that delightful app. The cap atop my head today is a banana. It is peeled on the front, and I I've tried wearing it the way that I'm wearing it now, which is with the peeled side toward the front of my head. But then I've also worn it to the side so that you could see the full banana. And it seems as if it was made to wear it with the peeled side toward the front. So that's the way I'm wearing it, even though it doesn't give you sort of the full scope of the banana. So I'm going to turn to the side for a moment so you can see. Doesn't really look like a banana, I'll say. It was, it's an inexpensive hat. So what do you expect? Anyway, the app I want to talk about is a fun app, but it's also a great time to, if you are a Twitterific user or have been a Twitterific user, and you, of course, are aware that Twitterific and Tweetbot and many third-party clients are now unable to make use of the Twitter API, which means that the apps that have been kind of, not, if not main sources of income, large sources of income for these companies are no longer as viable as they once were. So if you'd like to support the Icon Factory, which makes Twitterific, and show your support for Twitterific was the first Twitter client. And when I say the first Twitter client, I mean there was no Twitter client even from Twitter when Twitterific created the first Twitter client for the Mac. And Twitterific was instrumental in the history of Twitter, including helping to inspire the verb tweet, to tweet. So this is a good time for me to mention you should check out my interview last Thursday on Tech News Weekly with Craig Hockenberry of the Icon Factory. Craig came up with the idea for Twitterific while taking a shower and quickly, laid down the groundwork for that and, later fleshed it out with the team into a full app. And Twitterific has had a long history. And despite that, just no respect, no heads up. You got to listen to the interview to kind of hear more about that because it goes into detail about how they found out. In any case, if you would like to support the Icon Factory, there's a great app called Wallaroo. Wallaroo is available to download for free. It's $1.99 a month or $20 a year. And in subscribing, what you're doing is you're paying the artists who are creating wallpapers for your iPhone. So this is iPhone and iPad. There are a bunch of different custom wallpapers that are regularly updated. So they are often tied to pop culture. So you'll see some pop culture references from time to time, occasional anime. There are some beautiful kind of illustrations they do during Pride Month, like Pride illustrations every year. Halloween, they come out with a bunch of different Halloween options. So they're always being updated. That's whenever you pay for it, you're basically paying to let those artists continue to make cool wallpapers so you can keep your wallpapers updated and timely, and at the same time get a bunch of fun options that are there. There aren't any ads or anything like that in the app. And I also like that Wallaroo makes use of a shortcut to install the wallpapers on your phone. So you can very easily make the wallpaper or set the wallpaper on your phone without having to save it first and then go into the settings and then do this and then do that. They've cleverly integrated with a Siri shortcut to be able to do it. And it's also fun to take a look at that shortcut and see what they're doing because they basically just turn it into, a hash, and then turn the hash back into an image and then use the set wallpaper command in shortcuts. So a very clever way of making that happen, but also a very neat app. I typically either use photos I've taken or I use photos from, now I can't think of the name. Unsplash.com. But I saw that the Icon Factory made this app and I wanted to check it out, and I've been really happy with the different options that are available. So yeah, great new wallpapers every week, and a great way to support an awesome company that has unfortunately faced a bit of a hurdle with the discontinuation of third-party access to Twitter's API. So check that out, Wallaroo in the App Store. And with that, we have reached the end of this episode of iOS Today. I hope that you were inspired to take advantage of all of the awesomeness that AirPlay can provide. I'm curious, those of you who are interested, when you get your HomePod second generation, tell me all about it. I'm curious to hear, well, we are curious to hear your experience with it. Rosemary will be talking about it as well. That'll be fun. And yeah, we'll have more for you next week. This show records every Tuesday at around about 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So you can tune in live at twit.tv/live to watch the show as we record it. But you can also check out the show after the fact via the subscription or follow. Go to twit.tv/iOS. There you will find buttons to subscribe to audio or subscribe to video formats in all the different services, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We try to be on all of the different providers so that you can check it out, because at the root of this is just an RSS feed. And many of those services have the ability to grab that feed and show you what you want. That's what makes podcasting amazing. So do head to twit.tv/iOS to check that out. If you'd like to get all of our shows ad-free and essentially be the sponsor of the show, well, we've got a way for you to do that, to support us and help us continue to make great content. You go to twit.tv/clubtwit. There, you can subscribe starting at $7 a month or $84 a year. You'll get every single show with no ads, just the content. You'll also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. Outtakes, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, lots of great magic happening there. And access to the members-only Discord server. That is a place where you can chat with your fellow Club Twit members and all of us here at Twit. There's always something exciting going on in the Club Twit Discord. People getting their questions answered, people sharing their favorites and talking about television shows. I mean, just anything you can imagine. It all is happening in that Club Twit Discord, all for $7 a month, starting at that price. We heard from some people who said, hey, I'd like to pay you more. Can I do that? So Patrick Delahanty flipped a switch, and suddenly you were able to subscribe for more than that if you would like. And we appreciate every single one of you who tune in every week, and those of you who choose to subscribe. We thank you so much for your support there. We continue to make Club Twit more valuable than it even was when it first started. How? Well, we've introduced some great shows, including the Untitled Linux Show, which is, as you might imagine, a show all about Linux. Hands on Windows, which is Paul Thurrot's show that covers Windows tips, tricks, and more. And my show, Hands on Mac, which is all things Apple tips and tricks. It's a shorter format show. So I just have, typically one kind of topic to talk about each week to help you with your Mac, with your iPhone, with your iPad, all those different devices. Lots of great stuff there. So we think, that you as supporters should have some great special treats. And those are just some of the special treats we provide. Again, twit.tv/clubtwit. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you're doing, where should they go to do that?
Well, the best place to go is rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to the things that I do on the internet and the places that you can find me, including various social media. But you can also find me in that Club Twit Discord, where I'm hanging out in the iOS Today channel and, having some great chats with folks and learning all sorts of cool things from our lovely listeners. Other than that, at Rosemary Orchard on most social media. Mikah, what about you?
Well, you can find me at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Check that out and find the different places I am. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us for this episode of iOS Today. We will, of course, be back next week with even more awesome. But until then, we say goodbye to all of you.
The world is changing rapidly. So rapidly, in fact, that it's hard to keep up. That's why Mikah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, talk with the people making and breaking the tech news on Tech News Weekly every Thursday. They know these stories better than anyone, so why not get them to talk about it in their own words? Subscribe to Tech News Weekly and you won't miss a beat every Thursday at twit.tv.